Okay, let's bring her in. You know her from Hot Bench, season 12 of Hot Bench, airing right now on, well, it's on all day, every day, different times of the day in different cities. If you go to the gas station, it's probably there. Maybe in your dentist waiting office, it's there. It's everywhere. Rachel Juarez. Rachel, how you doing?
Hi, you didn't say Emmy award-winning Hot Bench.
Oh, damn it. I totally forgot. That's right. You guys won an Emmy for...
We did.
What was the actual title for Best Daytime Judge Show?
So it's a courtroom show. So courtroom show has been a specific category for something like 15 or 20 years now.
Yeah.
And we've been nominated 6 times, and this is our first win. So it's very exciting.
So it's the win of, I guess, technically the season 11.
Correct.
With Michael?
Yes. It was really, really meaningful for us because Michael, our judge who's retired, he was the judge on season 11, and this was a season 11 Emmy. So his last season was the Emmy winning one.
Gotcha. And you were not in attendance because you were sick.
I was really sick, as we'll talk about because it's relevant to what we're going to discuss today. But I was so sick I couldn't go to the Emmys. So that was a bummer.
That must have been pretty bad.
Yeah.
For you to be in that state. So I wanted to kind of do this and bring you on. And we postponed it a day because of your travel schedule yesterday. And I need to fill people in on what this is about, because I think a lot of people, when they hear the name Laura Owens, who have listened to me, just think it's a deal with Clayton. And
right.
Obviously a lot of it is. She has a criminal case coming up sometime in 2026 where she's going to face the prosecutor's office, county of Arizona, or in Arizona, because they are charging her with, I believe, 7 felony counts. Is it 7 felony? Not felony.
Right now it's 7, yeah.
Right now it's 7. That could possibly change. But
it can always possibly change, yeah.
Yeah. And this, however, is having to do with somebody else that was at Clayton's trial a year and a half ago. His name is Mike Marraccini, and he is somebody that had a prior relationship in the mid 2010s with Laura, and obviously things went haywire, like every relationship she has in her life goes haywire. Yep. And she has a restraining order against him. So basically she had to appear in San Francisco court 2 weeks ago for a 2-day trial to renew her restraining order against him. She did not appear at that 2-day trial. So why don't you update everybody on what happened 2 weeks ago, a trial that you had signed on to be co-counsel for Mike Marraccini.
Yes.
So let everyone know, first off, how you got involved in the Mike Marraccini case, and then why, obviously, your sickness is what prevented you from attending that particular trial. But tell everyone what the point of the 2-day trial was that was postponed, why it was postponed back then, and then we'll get to what happened this week.
Okay. So Laura has a number of men who have had a similar disaster with her to what happened with Clayton. And one of them is Mike. He's very different than Clayton in the sense of they actually had a relationship for an extended period of time. This was not a 1-night or 2-night encounter. And after the relationship ended back in 2018, Laura sought a domestic violence restraining order against Mike for some very serious allegations, saying that he was strangling her during sex, that he was, beating her up, that she had bruises and black eyes, that he was choking her, that he rendered her unconscious at least once. I mean, this is very serious allegations. And she was granted a restraining order for a couple of years. Mike's lawyer ended up telling him not to contest it, to just let it, have the restraining order, just let her get it, just don't bother her. And several years ago, when it expired the first time, Laura went in to get it renewed, and it was renewed for several more years. And it expired, or it was set to expire this past July, I believe. So we've all been waiting, sort of the Laura community, to see what she was going to do about this. Because if she just didn't do anything, the restraining order would have just expired and she would not have a restraining order. And Laura and Mike have not had any contact for years. The only way that they've been in the same orbit is because of Clayton's trial. And because Mike was a witness in the Clayton trial, he didn't end up testifying. But at some point, Greg Woodnick was considering showing that Laura had a pattern of doing this to multiple men. They ended up not having enough time. But that was the only context in which they really had any interaction for years. And in fact, Laura moved to Scottsdale, and Mike is still living in Northern California.
And married with a child.
Married with 2 children. Yes. His wife is lovely. I mean, he has a new life. He would rather never hear about Laura Owens again in his life. And perhaps unsurprisingly, Laura asked the court on the eve of this restraining order about to expire to renew it, and said she's still terrified for her life because of Mike, that he's still doing all these harassing things to her, including posting all these things online about her. And she claims that a lot of things posted by other people are posted by Mike. And that the fact that he came to her trial against Clayton was a violation of the restraining order, which it was not, because the judge knew he was coming. He was subpoenaed. He showed up. And so she asked for a restraining order renewal. And in the past, Mike had kind of just laid down and died, because fighting a restraining order is so difficult. And this time around, Mike really didn't want to do that. He wanted to fight it. So Omar Serrato, who's the Tilted Lawyer on YouTube, who had been covering this case, offered to represent Mike. And when I heard that, as you know, I've had quite a bit of experience with domestic violence restraining orders. And this case is here in California. Mike's case with Laura is in San Francisco. So I told Omar that I would be happy to help out. This was Omar, all the way. But I told him I'd be willing to help. I'd be willing to consult with him, and then maybe come cross-examine Laura if she was going to show up. But of course, we didn't think she would. So I reached out to Omar and said I'd be happy to get involved and just kind of be a resource for you and for Mike. And he said, great. And so we undertook to start getting ready to fight the restraining order, to actually oppose her request to renew it. And the last thing I'll say is she was actually asking for a permanent restraining order this time, not just another 5 years, not another 2 years. She wanted a restraining order against Mike until one of them died.
That seems like a long time for somebody who lives in a different state, is married with 2 kids. And, you said she claims that he continued to harass her. Even people that were harassing her, apparently, she was just saying, oh, this is Mike. Again, I would think in a court of law, she has to prove it was Mike, and I don't know how she was ever going to do that, because we all know it wasn't Mike.
Right. Well, the issue is, and I know you and I have talked about this before, the burden of proof when you're talking about restraining orders is extraordinarily low. Yeah. It's even lower when you're talking about renewing a restraining order. And part of the reason in California is because if you have a restraining order against someone and they violate it, and they're continuing to do things that are a violation, obviously that's kind of a good reason that you still need a restraining order. However, in California, if you don't violate it, it's proof that it's working.
It's working, yeah.
So it's a good reason to renew it. So it is extraordinarily easy. You do not have to prove a violation. That's critical. All you have to prove is that you're still reasonably in fear. And so the legal standard is extraordinarily low.
Which any woman in her position can say, I'm still in fear. Whether or not she is or not is kind of irrelevant. So
yeah, it's very easy to say. It's a low bar. It's an easy thing when there's been very serious provable violence. Then it's really kind of understandable that someone would still be afraid. But for anything short of that, it really just gets into reasonable fear. Okay, let's talk about that,
So there was a trial set 2 weeks ago. It was supposed to be a 2-day trial, I believe October. Right. It was like a Tuesday and a Wednesday, October 13th or 14th and something like that. 12th, 13th, something like that. And Laura, because she is under criminal prosecution by the county, Maricopa County in Arizona, to leave the state, she needs to get permission to leave the state. She can't just get on a plane and go anywhere, even if it's just to go visit her sister or go take a vacation somewhere. She has to get permission. And leading up to this Tuesday case that was supposed to be a couple weeks ago, she hadn't gotten any permission. And people were looking at the docket saying, she still hasn't filed. So she's clearly not showing up for this. Yeah. And then even though you were supposed to be at that, you guys were ready to go, and
Yeah.
you were ready to go to that 2-day trial, even though you wouldn't have been physically there because you were sick.
Right.
You were gonna be a part of it through Zoom, right? Or no?
We talked about various options. It became very clear, because I'm going to back you up in a second,
Okay.
that she wasn't coming.
Yeah.
If she was actually going to come, we might have arranged for me to appear via Zoom, or I would have had a helicopter me up or something. But when it became very clear she wasn't coming, we kind of said, it's okay if I don't come. We'll be all right.
Okay. So back me up to where you need to back me up to. And
yeah. Just because, I mean, this is really one of the outrageousness of Laura Owens is really, I think, on display much more with Mike than it was with Clayton. So
wow. That's a big statement to make.
It is. And I'm telling you, it dwarfs what happened with Clayton. It really does. So one of the things that Omar did when he got into the case was he decided to file a motion, not only to oppose the restraining order, but to actually have it vacated, dating all the way back to when it was issued, which you can really is extraordinarily hard to do on the basis that it was obtained through fraud. And so that was a way to kind of bring in all of the false allegations she originally made against Mike, because there's overwhelming evidence just absolutely disproving her allegations. And when you're kind of talking about all these things that Laura does, the dating contracts, all that happened with Mike. She didn't send him a dating contract, but she, told him she would have an abortion if he dated her, things like that. With Mike, she actually claimed to have at least 7 abortions that were unsuccessful. Every time, she wanted to kind of hang on to him, she said, "Oh, I'm pregnant. This is so terrible." And then she would say, "Okay, if you'll date me and you'll stay with me, I'll have an abortion." And he would say, "Okay."
Seven pregnancies that were unsuccessful.
No, seven abortions of the same pregnancy, Steve.
Oh, 7 abortions of the same, that's why I was just like, it doesn't even make any sense. That's why I corrected you.
No, it doesn't. The first question I asked Mike is, I was like, 7 failed abortions? And it might have been 6. I mean, it's hard to lose. You lose track, right? But she literally, it was this pattern where she would say, "Okay, if you'll date me, I'll go have an abortion." Okay,
Rachel,
I will.
I need to stop you real quick.
Yeah.
I just got a text from our friend, literally 1 minute ago.
Which friend?
Brad.
Okay.
Laura Owens indicted on additional felony charges. So Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell has announced the indictment of Laura Michelle Owens on felony charges related to a false claim of pregnancy involving a second victim. In 2021, the victim, after a third date, he decided not to continue the relationship.
Greg.
So in 2021, the victim began dating Laura Owens, but after a third date, he decided not to continue the relationship. Owens then claimed to be pregnant by him. MCAO investigators found evidence that Laura Owens falsified documents to bolster this claim. On Tuesday, Owens was indicted on the following felony charges.
Wow.
1 count of perjury, a class 4 felony. 1 count of fraudulent schemes and artifices, a class 2 felony. 2 counts of taking the identity of another, a class 4 felony.
Oh, wow.
2 counts of forgery, a class 4 felony. 1 count of theft by extort, accuse of crime, a class 4 felony. These charges are in addition to those involving victim Clayton Echards. Trial in the Echards case is set for January 2026. So this is 1, 2, 3. This is 7 more counts.
I think it's got to be Greg, unless it's the victim that is not coming forward, because it can't be Mike for a number of reasons. It's too late in time.
Yeah.
And what happened with Mike happened in California. So Arizona can't prosecute her for it. So I have to imagine this is either Greg or a new victim, but I think the timing lines up with Greg.
Wow. I mean, that's 7 more. Now she has 14 counts against her.
Please tell me you caught my reaction to that and you're going to not cut it out or anything.
Oh, no, I'm not going to cut it out.
Because you said I'm going to stop you and I got really worried. Oh my God. I mean, look, I can't tell you what my client is saying right now because it's attorney-client privilege, but this is a great text chain that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, we're both looking at our text.
I know. Sorry. I'm telling them I'm recording with you and reacting in real time.
Yeah. I asked if this is Greg and said yes. So this is about Greg.
It is Greg. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, now she's got 14 counts against her. What timing? How about that?
I know, right? And
we're recording, and we got
no,
to go
and
back.
I pushed you to do it early, right? I said, "Can we please do it earlier? Can we please do it earlier?"
Yeah.
See, there you go.
Right.
Yeah, now my phone is going to be out of control. I mean, this is really wonderful. It really is. And see, I said earlier there could be additional charges added.
Literally,
I suspected
like 2 minutes ago you said
I know
there could be additional charges.
And now I can tell you, I suspected there would be for a number of reasons, but I didn't know. I honestly didn't know for sure. So I didn't want to say there will be, but I was pretty sure they were coming.
Now, real quickly, does Greg still have, does she still have a restraining order out against Greg?
No. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. She let the one against Clayton lapse, but I can't remember the status of her restraining order with Greg.
Yeah, I don't know. Other people will certainly know.
Yeah, no, I'm sure other people will. I mean, this is proof that like I'm really involved now, and even I can't keep track of all the facts. It's wild. So okay, wow. So now we got to take a step back.
Let's go back to Mike.
Yes, go back to Mike.
So wherever you were with that.
Yes, I remember what I was saying. So she would tell him, "I'm going to go have the abortion today," and then she would say, like, "Well, do you still like me? Do you still want to be in a relationship with me?" And if he didn't answer right away, she would say, "Oh my gosh, the abortion didn't work." Okay. And then we have text messages that were extracted from Mike's old computer from a forensic analyst who, the JFC crowd paid for, showing that she basically told Mike that she had ovarian cancer and was having an ovary removed, and falsified medical documents from doctors saying you have real cancer and, all these things. And it was all false. So the outrageousness of her conduct really, I think, absolutely peaked with Mike. It's not to say what she did to Greg and Clayton was not horrible. It was, but Mike actually dated her for a while, and the length of what she did is just outrageous. So we were gonna go in and try to show the judge, look, this restraining order was originally obtained by fraud, even though probably we wouldn't have won because it's extraordinarily hard to win, but we were going to try. So immediately, of course, David Gingras becomes involved, as you can imagine. And, we were just trying to get her to just walk away. We said, look, Mike doesn't want to do this. If you just walk away, he'll walk away. And we went through weeks, and really it was Omar. I was there kind of in the background helping him, but I have to give all the credit to Omar. He really ran this ship. Filing all these motions, dealing with all of this absurd legal stuff that Laura was bringing. And the most important ones for purposes of discussing what's going forward is Laura said to the court, "I want to appear by Zoom for the trial. I don't want to come in person. Or I want to have written questions sent to me instead of being questioned that I can just answer in writing." Okay. So at some point, everyone was in court prior to the actual scheduled trial date. And the judge in San Francisco County, Carolyn Gold, who is wonderful. She really is, from what I've seen in this case. Similar to, I think, Julie Mata, really on top of things, really sharp. She said, no.
Mata was just showing off for her dad, though. We all know this.
Well, fortunately, Carolyn Gold came out of this unscathed so far, because her dad didn't show up to the trial. Yeah. But she said, no, the parties need to be here in person. This is really important. If you have a witness who has a couple things to say about something, they can come by Zoom. That's fine. But Laura and Mike, you need to be here, both of you, in person to be cross-examined for trial. Okay. So trial is set for October, 22nd and 23rd. And
let me look. I thought it was
21st and 22nd, was it maybe?
Yeah, 21st and 22nd.
21st and 22nd.
I was saying 13th and 14th. Yeah. 21st and 22nd.
No, I know it was the 22nd because that's my sister's birthday. And I know that was one of the 2 days of trial.
Yeah. Tuesday, Wednesday. Yep.
Yeah. So we made efforts, including a very lengthy call with David Gingras, which resulted in our filing a motion to disqualify him from the case and him ultimately saying, I won't represent Laura. We tried to get them to just stop, just drop it. If you just walk away, it's what she said she wanted with Clayton all along. I just wanted to walk away. So we said, you can have your walk away. We won't seek fees. We even said we would withdraw our motion to vacate the original restraining order because Mike didn't want to have to litigate and go through trial if this could just be over.
Yeah.
You know, he has a new life. So she wasn't having it. So then we get to the eve of trial and bets are being made, right? Is Laura coming? And this is, again, the eve of October, 21st, 22nd. And the first day of trial comes. It's October 21st. And they show up to the courtroom and there's no court reporter. There's also no Laura. And Laura is on Zoom, which the judge had told her very explicitly, orally at the last hearing, you're going to come here in person. And Laura said, well, I can't come. I'm having severe health issues, right? The health issues that always come up when something is happening that she doesn't like. And I didn't even think you really wanted me here in person anyway. And the judge said, well, that's ridiculous. I did. And I told you that. But we don't have a court reporter today, which means we can't proceed. So fortunately, we still have a second day of trial, which is tomorrow at this point, back in October. And so she made it very clear, Laura, you show up here in person tomorrow morning, or your restraining order is dismissed. That's it. So we all knew she had not requested permission to leave the state. We all knew it probably wasn't going to happen. So then, as one in Laura Owens' position does, that evening, Laura started emailing the judge, which we've seen in the past from Clayton's case is kind of her fallback go-to, right? Which is she starts sending these improper email communications. And she starts talking about how sick she is, how terrible things are, how she can't come in person, how she doesn't have a lawyer, and how she needs accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And out of an abundance of caution, I won't say exactly what disabilities she claimed to have, but it was about 12, okay?
Yeah.
And she said she couldn't appear in person. She couldn't travel. She couldn't do it without a lawyer. And there was actually a nurse practitioner who she referred to as a doctor, which is not permitted in California, who said, Laura is so traumatized, she can't come to trial. This is so, so terrible. And this is literally 9:00 at night, maybe the night before the second day of trial. So Omar and the team show up the next day of trial. And I actually, am laying in bed, sick as a dog, trying to talk to them without a voice, And they show up to the next day of trial. And there's still no Laura. And it turned out that Laura had gone to the chief justice of the family, I guess chief judge of the family section in San Francisco. Basically, again, another Laura Owens move, the judge's boss, and said, I'm disabled and not being properly accommodated. And it worked. The chief judge said she's entitled to some accommodations. Now, that portion happened behind closed doors. I was not there. Omar wasn't there because Americans with Disabilities Act claims are confidential. So we don't know exactly what was discussed. Even if we somehow did, we wouldn't be allowed to talk about it, and I wouldn't. But we don't know anyway. So they came back out and said, we're going to continue the trial as an accommodation to Laura under the Americans with Disabilities Act for 2 weeks, so that the new trial date will be November 5th. And as I think you can imagine, there was a whole team of people, not legal team, like a whole JFC crew that had come to watch this trial. Clayton came, right? Because these men are now very good friends, and their wives are friends. They've really bonded over this because they've all gone through this really horrible thing and felt like they couldn't talk about it, because it's shameful. I have a restraining order against me. How terrible is that? And all these people were here. It was a devastating blow that the trial wasn't going to proceed. So that takes us up to 2 weeks ago.
But I want to rewind real quick.
Please.
Because right after that,
21st
and 22nd, that Tuesday and Wednesday, trial doesn't happen. She got a continuance to November 5th, which was Wednesday of this week. But then we come to find out, because it was reported, public records shows that she was complaining of vomiting.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Vomiting blood, gastrointestinal bleeding. And then it was found out with physical evidence, not just, I heard this, that she was out horse jumping 3 days later.
Yes. So 3 days later, all of this stuff starts to come into us from the horse community in Arizona, showing that 3 days later, Laura was not only at, but won a horse jumping competition.
Yeah.
And there's video. And by the way, it was a gold medal in like the juniors division, but okay, whatever. There's video of her on a horse jumping over the things. There's video of her walking around, pictures of her on her cell phone at the thing. And then we hear, but wait, the horse jumping competition it didn't only start 3 days later. It started a little bit before that. And the horses were arriving before that. And ultimately we found at least one eyewitness who saw Laura at the horse jumping competition on the Wednesday when she went into court and said, I need these accommodations to not go to trial. And when she had said, she had severe gastrointestinal bleeding, she was vomiting blood, and she claimed, although she had no proof, that her doctor said it would be life-threatening for her to travel to San Francisco. And yet there she was, zooming in from her car. And we have a witness who saw her in person at the horse jumping competition that Wednesday.
And even if that witness doesn't have any video evidence, at minimum, you have her 3 days later jumping on the horses.
Absolutely. And
horse jumping.
We have, I don't know if we had video or audio from that day, but we certainly had pictures, videos, tons from the ensuing days. And to me, it doesn't really matter if it was Wednesday or Thursday or Friday. She represented to the court more times than I can count that it was going to be life-threatening to her to have to come to San Francisco. But she was just fine to be riding around in competitive horse shows.
Yeah.
So we start to amass all of this evidence. Yes, and in the days immediately following the first trial that was postponed.
At that point, is there anything you can do to tell the judge, we don't want to come back on the 5th, or this trial on the 5th should be dismissed because of these lies she just told you to get extended to the 5th? Or do you just say, fine, we'll bring it up at the trial on the 5th as evidence to make it to be dismissed?
There's really no way to say we don't want to have a trial. And it's also something that would have just severely overcomplicated things for no good reason. We would have had to go in on emergency motions and try to be heard instead of preparing for trial. There's no good way to say we don't want to have to come. So we decided we are just going to bring this up when we show up as more evidence of her lying under oath. So,
okay.
All right. So that's, and naturally, once that happens, because Laura is reading all this stuff on the internet, she starts to reach out to Omar and tell him it's all lies. I wasn't there on Wednesday. I was at a doctor's office. They will confirm it. I have surveillance video of me there that you can get. Well, meanwhile, when she keeps saying, you can get my medical records, she wouldn't sign a HIPAA release that we asked her to sign. So she's saying publicly, you can have everything, but then won't sign a HIPAA release from the lawyers.
And you can't get it without that, correct?
No. I mean, you could. There are ways to do it, but really complex ways that would have delayed things so much. So we just decided we'll go forward. And as things start to move forward, Laura gets more and more desperate. She really wants to just walk away from all of this. but she can't do it. So, she's trying to say, won't Mike just stipulate to a restraining order, things like that? No, of course not, and she's getting increasingly more unhinged. So this brings us to this week. The last 4 days have been like, whoo. And on Monday, we learn that Laura filed another request for accommodations under the Americans with Disability Act in front of Judge Gold the week prior. She did it without telling us, which is appropriate. It can be confidential. And Judge Gold denied it. And she said, you were already accommodated. You already pulled this stuff a week and a half ago and got the accommodation you wanted, which was a continuance. Now you want another accommodation, which again
was say what that accommodation is or no?
Yeah, she wanted to not show up to trial. She wanted to be cross-examined by questions or appear by Zoom or get a continuance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, she just didn't want to have to come and answer questions, period. Yeah. End of story.
Not a shocker.
So the way we found out was Laura filed an emergency appeal of Judge Mata saying, no, ma'am, you need to be here in person.
You mean Judge Gold?
I'm sorry, Judge Gold, yes. Yeah. She filed an emergency appeal of Judge Gold saying to her, no, you must be here in person. Again, these emergencies at the last minute. She went to the California Court of Appeal, filed this extremely large, appeal, which David Gingras was all over these documents. You could see sentences in them that were, clearly written by David Gingras. I'd put money on it. And so here we are. We have a trial on Wednesday, and Laura has an emergency appeal pending with the California Court of Appeal. So this, of course, sends everything into a frenzy. She's also asking the Court of Appeal, if they're not going to decide anything yet, at least stop the trial from moving forward. So I can have, some time to tell you more about my, horrible, horrible circumstances and why I shouldn't have to answer questions on cross-examination. So we decide we just have to prepare as though it's going forward. And at the same time, as one of her many desperate moves, Laura is sending these emails to Omar, threatening to disqualify him because he did YouTube commentary criticizing her in the past.
In the past, not...
Yeah, in the past. The minute he became Mike's lawyer, Omar shut it down. But in the past, relative to the Clayton case. So for that reason, we decided, even though we have no idea what's going to happen, I have to go, no matter what, because we just want this to be over, and if she wants to disqualify Omar, fine, he'll step back and I'll do the trial. We didn't want to give her any reason to keep things going. So we find out on Tuesday,
the day before the trial.
The day before the trial. And now we're all up there ready for the trial. That the California Court of Appeal denied her motion. They did it really quickly. They denied it. And they denied it basically because it was totally improperly done. It didn't address the correct legal issues. It wasn't filed in the appropriate manner. It didn't attach the documents that are required to be attached, which was just kind of a fun thing for us to see because we know that means that it was David Gingras who screwed all those things up.
I was going to say, that's a David Gingras special. That's what he's known for.
Absolutely. And it was just basic things like didn't address the judge's main reasons, stuff that lawyers really should know. So we say, okay, so this is when the real insanity starts. This is Tuesday night. So on Tuesday night, trial is on Wednesday morning. We're all here together getting ready. Laura starts to complain, again, directly to the judge. And I cannot underscore this enough. You don't just email judges. You just don't do that. Okay? There are many judges who allow you, who say to counsel, like, oh, if you'd like to change the hearing date, you may email me. And then you email them a one-liner, like, dear, Your Honor, we have agreed to change the trial date to blank. Is that okay? Some judges will invite you to do that. But you don't just start sending ranting emails to judges. I mean, it isn't done. And so Laura starts sending these unhinged emails to the judge about the court reporter issue. And what happened was the court said we may not have a court reporter available for your trial. So one of the parties should bring one. Super common in California. Totally understaffed, under budget. Courts don't have enough resources to have court reporters in every courtroom every day.
Yeah.
So for things like this, they will say to the parties, one of you hire a certified shorthand reporter, a CSR. They get certified to do this and bring them, and you pay for it, which is a little bit of a bummer. And you bring them to the court so that there can be a court reporter here for us. And we, of course, already had one ready to go because we knew this might happen. And so over the course of the day, we told the court, okay, we'll have someone there. So then towards the end of the day, Laura starts complaining about the fact that we are bringing a court reporter, which is crazy for someone who's involved in these cases, because usually you fight over who doesn't have to pay for one. Usually you point the finger, you pay for the reporter, you pay for the reporter.
You guys were paying for the reporter that you were bringing. This wasn't even a charge on her.
And it is not cheap, okay? Yeah. So she says the fact that we're paying for the reporter means the reporter is going to be biased and part of the JFC crew and will not make an accurate record. And she can't hire her own reporter because she's indigent. And therefore, it would be fundamentally unfair for her not to be able to bring her reporter. I mean, these people are professionals. They're certified. They don't change the record to say things that
their whole job is to sit there and just transcribe every word that's being said.
Yes. And they're not employees of firms. They're employees of, it's not like I would bring my assistant or something. It's not like I would bring the court reporter from my law firm. You hire them from a court reporter agency. I mean, these are consummate professionals. Okay. And I've never heard anyone suggest that a certified shorthand reporter would be biased towards the person that paid them. And I've never heard that made. But of course, Laura makes that argument. And she starts saying, well, you know what? I did have plans to travel. I bought myself a plane ticket. I was going to come. But then when I heard there wasn't going to be a reporter, I canceled my plans. And now I can't make my plans again. And by the way, I'm still very sick. Right? So I just can't come. So we get to about 7:00 in the evening.
On Tuesday night, with trials set to be Wednesday morning. Yeah.
And around, I guess a little bit before that, around 6:00, someone from the court basically acknowledges receipt, not the judge, but a clerk of Laura's email, says the trial will proceed tomorrow. Right? Just in case there was any doubt, because she said there were all these constitutional violations going on with this court reporter thing, and she's so sick, And so as of about 7:30 or 8:00 at night, the email traffic stops. And we say, gee, I wonder what's going to happen. Now, I would have bet money, and I think most people would have, that this woman was not going to show up.
She was never going to show up. It had nothing to do with Tuesday night and
never.
Court report.
However,
she was fishing for reasons not to show up.
Right. However, she actually emailed Omar. Omar, just so you know, I have seen online that people don't think I'm going to travel. Well, I am. I'll be there. Right. So now, it's just kind of going crazy. So we all have dinner and we say, you know what, what's going to happen is going to happen. Let's just do this.
I was one of those people saying she wasn't showing up.
Yeah, no, there's no way. So we wake up in the morning. I wake up in the morning at about 6:30 to get ready for trial to an email in my inbox from Laura Owens to the court, the judge, and us and the clerk, the whole same, chain that had been going the day before, saying, oh my gosh, I've had an unexpected medical emergency. I am having severe vomiting of blood again. My doctors have made very clear this is a life-threatening situation. I was all ready to travel up north. My parents bought me a plane ticket last night instead of my plan to drive, which, by the way, contradicted what she had said the day before, that she was going to fly, but whatever. My parents bought me a last-minute plane ticket, and I was coming, Your Honor. But then I had this totally unexpected medical emergency, and here it is at 5 a.m., and I'm on my way to the hospital. And of course, there is just no way I will be able to attend trial because I may have to have surgery. I'm so sick. Everybody here, there's no way I can come. Okay. Right. I mean, we should have. I wish Vegas had been taking bets on what would happen, because I actually would have taken the bet that there would have been a hospital stay the night before.
Or the morning of.
Or the morning of. You're right. The morning of.
Yeah.
So as we're kind of getting everything ready for trial, we get another email from Laura. Hello, an update from the hospital. I am, in fact, going to have a medical procedure under anesthesia on an emergency basis. So, of course, I cannot come to trial. Thank you so much for understanding. It didn't say all the best. I wish it did. But, thank you so much, of course, for understanding. Love Laura, right? So we show up to the court. And at this point, we're all over the place about what's going on. Because, even though we know how ridiculous this is, and that this is her MO, and that it should look really absurd, we know that last time the chief judge intervened and found there was a basis for an accommodation. We know that this is a claim that she's in the hospital under anesthesia. And, under normal circumstances, even if you've already had a continuance, if you go into a court and you say, I'm in the hospital, the court says, okay. That's really the default. And I'll tell you, I have had situations where I'm kind of like, I don't really know if that person is sick. I have never really doubted that somebody was sick when they needed a last minute continuance. I certainly have never suggested that I might have doubts to a judge. It's just not how it works. When someone says I'm in the hospital the night before, you believe them and you give them the time. It's just how it works, And so we show up. Trial's supposed to start at 9. We've been moved to a bigger courtroom. And, we're strategically really having a tough time deciding, what do we do? Do we start telling the judge about the horse show? We're going through kind of all these permutations of how to handle this. And ultimately decide, we have to see what happens, obviously. So 9 o'clock comes around. This judge in the past has opened her doors right at 9. Nothing happens. A few minutes later, Omar and I get an email with a Zoom link saying, hello, all attendees for today's matter. Here is the Zoom link. So Omar and I are like, oh God, what's going on, right? She's setting up for Zoom in there. Oh God, who are we going to see? I had said the night before, I thought Laura would actually get herself admitted to the hospital and Zoom in from the hospital. So I was like, I knew it, I knew what was going to happen. Then about 15, 20 minutes later, the clerk of the court comes out and invites the court reporter only back in. We're all still standing out there, just dying to know what's happening. So finally we go into the courtroom and we all sit down. Bigger courtroom this time because the judge anticipated there would be more people there. And the judge takes the bench and says, okay, well, hello, we entered our appearances. And then she says, well, the petitioner was ordered to be here today. I don't see her. Does anyone see her? I don't see her. And we have Zoom open and she hasn't come in via Zoom and it's now 9:30 or whatever. And it's not 9:01. It's been quite some time and I don't see her. So her case is dismissed. And that was it. No discussion of the emails late at night. No discussion of the horse jumping and the horse show. It was as simple as this woman was ordered to be here in person and she is not here, which is exactly what it should have been, but we didn't have to go down that path. We didn't have to go into the, all the crazy stuff, all the crazy emails we got, how they contradicted each other. And so, Mike and his family burst into tears. It's this wonderful moment. The whole courtroom starts clapping, and she's kind of taken aback a little. So the only other thing that happened was Omar asked, when she says, is there anything else we need to do? Omar asked to have a date where we could argue a fee motion, which is standard. She said, yes. We got a date in January. He's going to do that. And that was it. The whole thing lasted about 2.5 minutes.
So now do you file something to hold her in contempt of court or sanction her for the no-show? Essentially, is there a way to call her bluff and make her prove what she told the court that morning was a total lie, that she was not in the hospital with gastrointestinal bleeding on the morning of the trial this past Wednesday?
So the answer to that is yes and no. The fee motion that we're going to be filing to seek fees is going to address that, because the standard for a fee motion in this context is basically that the respondent, Mike, can get fees if they win, which he did, a full dismissal. If you can prove that basically the respondent or the petitioner only filed this for improper purposes. And in order to do that, it's absolutely relevant to say she never intended to show up. She continued it many times. She did all this nonsense. So that is going to be in there heavily, because it's very relevant to her good faith in bringing this action. Whether or not there's going to be another motion, that's ultimately going to be Omar's call. I'm of the opinion, keep it simple, stupid. Let's file a fee motion. It will expose her lies. We don't need to start trying to hold her in contempt, which won't mean anything. She won't show up, and then nothing will happen, and then she'll be in contempt again. And it would still pale in comparison to what's going on in Arizona criminally. So my vote would probably be no, but that will ultimately be Omar and Mike's call. Omar's lead counsel, and it's the client decision.
But just fees in general.
Yeah.
You're probably going to, you're asking for the fees. You're probably going to win that. But this woman has no money. She's getting sued out the wazoo by Arizona and criminal. She has claimed she's got no money. You're never going to see that money anyway, right?
Right. And there's actually an added requirement for this type of fee motion. It would actually be our burden to prove she has the ability to pay. So I think we can do that just by showing her horse jumping, frankly. She's got a horse. Let's start there. She claims she owns a house. Let's start there, If we lose, I think it'll be on the basis that we don't really have enough to prove she can pay the fees. I think she probably can't pay the fees, right? Yeah. But it's our obligation to prove she has the ability to pay. But you're absolutely right. Even if we can convince a court she could pay, nobody's ever going to see that money. So it's really, we're going to do it as because it's the right thing to do. And because maybe, who knows, one day those fees will come in. But, when you start talking about lumping penalties on penalties and putting more bad money after good, or good money after bad, nothing is going to become of it as a practical matter.
So Mike wins the case. It's been dismissed. Yeah. He does not have a restraining order out against him anymore. Yay.
Yes.
Now what? She'll appeal, I assume. And when she loses the appeal, which I assume, can she honestly just file another restraining order against this guy?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. She can file it, but
right.
Does that mean it'll go through? I know you said, we always have said that the burden of proof is very low, but when we're talking about what you just described for the last 45 minutes of what happened, she can file one. Do you think she gets it? I guess is the better question, because anybody can. I could file one tomorrow against somebody.
You can file one against anybody. So my personal guess, which I think I told you before we came on, is I think she's going to appeal. I think she's going to go through the entire appellate process. I think she's going to lose.
Yeah.
And once the appellate process has been exhausted, and there's no more basis for her to appeal, I do think she's going to file a new restraining order against him or something. I think she cannot let go of this. She can't.
Clearly.
And so as sad as it is, and I want to put muffs on Mike's ears, because poor Mike and his wife, Danielle, this has just been so hard for them. I hate to even put this in the universe, but I think she's going to file a new restraining order. The problem is when you file for a restraining order in California, if she comes to California to file it, who knows, but the other side doesn't get to know necessarily. You can say, I'm too afraid to tell them. You can just make up things and they're completely untested. and you can get your temporary order, which then puts the other party on the back, on the back of their heels. And this is someone who we have seen have no compunction about outright lying. I mean, it's so bad, she's being charged with multiple counts of perjury, which never happens, right? She has no compunction about just literally making things up out of thin air to courts. No problem with it, as long as it's in writing, apparently, right? She's too scared to come do that in person, but she's happy to do it in writing.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't be surprised to see a restraining order that is literally just unbelievable lies. And the issue is, would somebody reviewing that even have a clue about any of these other cases? And I don't think they would. I don't know whether there is some system, backlog system, where they look at that stuff, but I don't think there is. And so this could just come to somebody in San Francisco who doesn't know A from B. She could say, this is my ex-boyfriend who's been stalking me for 8 years. And he just showed up at my house and tried to kill me. I need a restraining order. And he's not there to oppose it. And boy, if you believe those facts, which is the standard for a temporary order, you have to assume everything she's saying is true. Of course, that's a basis for a restraining order, if it's true. So
what about this idea of being a vexatious litigant? I know people have brought this up in the past with her.
Yeah.
But is a restraining order completely different than filing multiple lawsuits?
No, it's not. It could be, but vexatious litigants, it as you point out, it has to do with filing lawsuits, not pleadings. So if you file 20 frivolous pleadings in a lawsuit, that's different than 20 frivolous lawsuits. It's jurisdiction by jurisdiction. So you kind of have to stick to things she filed in California when you're talking to California. And 2 is not a sufficient number. I mean, these are people that file like 18 lawsuits, or maybe even 9, but I'm not an expert on the vexatious litigant thing, but I don't think she's probably close yet, sadly. Yeah.
So there's really nothing that can be done to stop her outside of her being in jail from her criminal prosecution when that trial happens at some point in 2026.
Yep.
She can't get a restraining order if she's on somebody if she's in jail in Arizona for all the Clayton stuff.
I mean, she could not tell them she's in jail, right? I mean, this is when you have a situation like this, which I've never seen anything like this, with someone who's willing to just not like fudge the truth or take a cold and make it into, pneumonia, but to just invent things out of thin air. Who knows what she could do next? And I just don't think she can let this go. And I don't think it's going to be enough for her to just say, the appeal is exhausted. Okay, we're done.
Oh, God, no.
No.
She's had numerous opportunities over the last 2.5 years to just let things go. And she hasn't, unfortunately. And I mean, like, an hour ago, it got worse for her as she's got 7 new counts. I can't wait
to see this stuff. I'm so excited.
And this is all new felony counts related to Greg. This has nothing to do with anything Clayton related, right? Because she could get more. Can't she get more counts put on her in the Clayton side of things?
She could. Yeah.
She's at 14 right now. 7, the original 7 that came down whenever that was. And then these 7 that came down today, which refer to her issues with Greg Gillespie.
Yeah.
And obviously the Arizona prosecutor's office is still investigating her. If they happen to find more stuff about her during this investigation, they can tack on more counts.
They can. Yeah. My guess is they won't search for it. My guess is they probably won't add to the Clayton stuff. They might, but at this point, they've got a broad array of charges. The things that are really going to make this worse for her are additional victims, not one more perjury count, if that makes sense. So it doesn't mean they won't do it. It doesn't mean they're not looking for as many charges as they can, credibly find. But who knows? We know they've been investigating. And, we've seen the body cam footage, when they went to her house. I mean, that is, I got to tell you,
Well, the main thing I learned is don't you dare show up at Laura Owens' door at 7 a.m. That's absolutely uncalled for. Like,
look,
she's
what I said was
basically expecting a heads up. She was like, "Oh, what 7 o'clock? This is way too early." It's like, what did you expect?
And by the way, you claim to have been pregnant so many times and you wanted to be a mom. Like 7 a.m. is like halfway into your day. Like, come on, right? How easy was it going to be, especially with twins?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if somebody's waking you up at 7 o'clock in the morning and that's your reaction, you're not ready for twins, my friend, No, it is really wild. I think it just continues to get wilder and wilder. And what I'm now wondering, I think what you said was that the indictment came down on Tuesday.
I did?
I think that's what you read.
Oh, what I read earlier?
Yeah.
Let me pull it up. This is a press release from today.
Right, but didn't it say on Tuesday she was indicted?
Oh, yeah, sorry. On Tuesday,
Yeah.
Owens was indicted on the following felony charges. So it took 2 days to put out the press release.
Right. So I'm wondering when she found out. I'm wondering what connection there is between her heightened nonsense and perhaps her finding out yesterday about these charges. Who knows?
And this is what caused the, hey, got that bad news on Tuesday, internal bleeding. That's why I was vomiting blood because I have 7 more counts against me.
Right. And especially because one of the just most bizarre things, not that it, escapes her, but one of the most outrageous things of what she did is she maintained for so long on Tuesday, I am not coming because this court reporter thing violates my rights. I am not showing up, period. And then we get this email that's like almost written by a different person. I kind of think ChatGPT wrote one of them and Gingras wrote the other. And she was just like trying to figure out which lane to go. And she just switched lanes. But then all of a sudden it was a switch of a lane. It was like, I was totally going to be there. But I'm in the hospital now.
Well, the other thing that was interesting on Tuesday at some point, you mentioned the whole thing about she had mentioned she was going to drive.
Yeah.
Scottsdale to San Francisco.
12 hours.
12-hour drive.
Yeah.
I Googled it. And I'm like, 12 hours? At what point were you planning on leaving? And then getting a hotel, getting some sleep, trial at 9 a.m. the next morning.
Yep.
Does she not plan anything in her life? It's just, she's a compulsive liar. Like there's no other way around it. We've known this for years of everything that she said and did to us, whether it was emails to me or Dave or Clayton and all the things that have been made up that she has said. Absolutely a compulsive liar. And
she just cannot get out of her own way.
Yeah.
It is this victimhood has become so much a part of her identity. The fact that she kept this going against Mike when we said, you know what, let's just do a walk away. And by the way, if she really was scared of him, which nobody really believes she was, by the way, Mike is the nicest guy you could ever imagine. And I think personally, he hasn't confirmed this, but I think the only reason he dated her for so long was because he was too nice to break up with her. He's like that nice, right? He's overly nice. And he has a lovely, wonderful wife, and adorable little girls. He just wanted her to walk away. He said, I'll never come after you. Never. No motion to vacate anything. No motion for fees. Even really late into the process. Can this just be over? And she just couldn't let it go.
Yeah. It's just the whole thing is sad. It's sad and it's fascinating and it's still never ending with Mike, with Clayton. Like this is not ending anytime soon. Well, the Mike stuff is over for now. She will obviously appeal.
I think
Appeals take a while. She's going to lose the appeal, just like she's lost every single thing in every single case that she's been involved in for the most part.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating at this point, and we just sit here on the sidelines and wait and commentate on it. But this is obviously a big win for Mike, and I met him the day of the trial. Yeah, super nice guy.
Yeah.
And you just sit there and you're just like, he was baffled by all the things that she has put him through, and you feel for the guy and you hope it's over. But like you said, it's very easy for her to just file another one.
Yeah.
And then they just have to, then he has to fight it, has to go to court and fight it. Like, we go through this again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of, the reason that things were different this time was really only because he was able to retain counsel to actually fight all of her nonsense, which is so sad.
Yeah.
Because, and it's not that he's not competent to do it. It's that nobody who's not a lawyer could keep up with this, like emailing the judge, filing these requests. I mean, it's insanity, right? We had a number of times where Omar and I, we're like, what? She did what? I don't even know how to oppose that, right? She did what? She emailed who, right? How do we oppose a submission to the chief judge? What do we do?
How is she getting the email address of the chief judge? Is that something that's very easy?
I think it is. I don't think it's difficult to find the emails for departments. Okay. But the fact that he needs, one or two lawyers to put in all of this time just to shut down something this outrageous and stupid is really horrible. Yeah. And it's not necessarily anybody's fault except for Laura, because you have to have a justice system and there are going to be people who radically abuse it. But it really shows that something is not working.
So we march on. Like you said, probably going to appeal it. We'll lose. Probably file another one against him.
Yeah.
We'll have to fight it. But then if he wins that, what's to stop her from, like, this was dismissed. Let's just say this would have gone to trial and she would have showed up and she would have lost the case. Can she file another a year later saying, oh, yes, you harassed me again?
Yes.
She can just keep doing it until the end of time?
I mean, when you say keep doing it until the end of time, right? Nobody would there wouldn't be like a guard at the front of the courthouse. Like, wait, this is Laura Owens, go home, Clearly at some point there would be something to do. To be candid, I don't know what it is, because I've never been in anything like a situation, any type of situation like this. I would imagine if she really did start to file serial ones, I would immediately start looking into some type of option for an injunction against her, or some type of order from a court that she needs permission before seeking a future restraining order, kind of like a vexatious litigant. We're not there yet. And I could be wrong. I don't want to maybe one day she'll decide to let this go.
Or maybe she won't be able to because she'll be in an Arizona prison.
Yeah. Yeah. And the addition of the 7 additional counts, I mean, now I'm not so sure I see a plea without jail time, because they're really going for this. They're really taking this seriously. I think it's so wonderful, because especially when you're there with Mike, this is not trivial. She has ruined lives, and she's a threat to continue to do it. And the fact that Arizona is taking this so seriously, and even though they were able to indict her, have been spending all this time, investigating another victim and adding charges, they don't do this just to put her on probation for 2 years. So I think the addition of these charges, my guess would be she's not going to get a plea without jail time now. Mm-hmm. And I previously thought before that if she was treated like most people in her situation, she probably would be offered a plea that had minimal to no jail time. Now I don't think so. You don't do all this to give someone the option to just take 2 years probation or 5 years probation. I don't think you do that. So I couldn't be happier. I mean, I think this is such a wonderful development, because as you see in what happened over the last 2 weeks shows us she has no remorse at all. She has not gotten any sense of reality, right? In terms of, the likelihood that she's going to succeed in any of these measures or what the consequences are. And she's escalating to a certain extent. I mean, in some ways, this is getting worse. She's not, she's writing increasingly unhinged emails. She's not kind of backing away. She's perpetuating this. And all of those are reasons for her to get seriously punished by the criminal justice system.
For sure. And I hope she does. I mean, at
I
this
do
point, I don't have I have no remorse for her.
No.
After what she's done to Clayton, what she's done to Mike, Greg. And it honestly, you know, when I read stuff and I see stuff in the court filings, and I see the horse jumping 3 days after she was supposed to be at a trial where she said it was life-threatening if she showed up, like that stuff literally makes my blood boil. And it's just very infuriating. So I want the book thrown at her at this point. I'd love to see her. She needs to suffer consequences. Probation to me is not a consequence for what she has done.
Yeah.
Punishment doesn't fit the crime in that if she gets probation. No.
I agree completely. And I really do think this is a good sign that that's not where it's headed, because they're really putting everything they have into this. And what I'm most pleased to see is that there were counts for impersonating someone, because to me, one of the most outrageous things she's done is falsify these doctor records saying, you know, Laura has very, very real cancer and her boyfriend needs to be nicer to her, you know, and submitting these fake medical records. It is outrageous.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to jump off and start reading more into the indictment. Because all of these, look, Clayton, the fact that Clayton was one of her victims, I'm not happy it happened to Clayton. Obviously, he's a really nice guy too, and didn't deserve any of this. Nobody does.
Did you spend any time talking to Clayton?
No. I've.
Oh, he was at the first one. He didn't come to this.
Yes, no, I've been in the ethos with communicating with him, but no, I haven't spent any time with him.
Yeah, I forgot
one-on-one.
He wasn't at.
But so I should say probably he seems like a really nice guy. And I've been told by people that he's a really nice guy. And if it hadn't been him, she'd be on her 6th or 7th victim now. Because if it hadn't been the Bachelor, and if and this is something that I forgot until this week, she was the one that took this public.
Yeah.
Not him. Not somebody down at a courthouse who said, "Ooh, there's a lawsuit against my favorite Bachelor." She took this to the Sun.
Yeah. Because he wouldn't respond to her, but when she said we need a parenting plan for our child, that was the reason that he basically just ghosted her, and she was upset.
Yeah.
You know?
And so, you know, Mike obviously had a much longer history and in some ways much worse history with her, but there are other victims. I mean, this man, Greg, she got restraining orders against him too, you know, and I am told that there are other men that she's done similar things to, and, you know, who don't want to come forward. And I understand that, you know, but it's so good that it finally happened in a way that it came to light. Because otherwise this would be virtually, you know, unstoppable. And she'd be going court system to court system against all these men and, you know, ruining lives left and right.
For sure. So we'll be following it. Obviously, we'll have you on in the future when more stuff happens. But Rachel, thank you so much for coming on.
You got it.
Do this, and obviously we'll be in touch.
Sounds good.
Okay. Bye.
You got it. Bye.